The Sand-Taker by Brent Michael Kelley. Read by Jordan Etheredge.
"I want to spy," says a little boy named Wayne. "No, me," says a little girl named Inair. "You both can," says the other little girl, Fall. The boy shakes his head at her. "Nuh-uh, there's only room for one." Casa shushes them. "All of you quiet down. If they hear us, nobody will get to, and nobody will be able to ever again." Other children scurry about the playfield alongside the Gilly Village Hall. Older kids, like Casa, try to tend the little ones left in their charge. Inair, Fall, and Wayne are the very good kids, compared to most. She trusts them to do what she says. "Do the inny-minnies, Casa," says Inair. "Yeah, inny-minnies," says Wayne. "Do it, Casa." "Fine," says Casa. She acts annoyed, but she's secretly glad. The little ones think there's something mystical about the inny-minnies, and she is the keeper of the magic. Someday they'll master the song themselves, and the magic will fade. She leads them to the back of the playfield, where the shrub trees grow up next to the building. They gather around her in a circle. She hunkers down with 1 foot forward. They each put a foot by Casa's. "Inny, minny, dinker, dinny, bango, binny, boom. Sand-taker, take you down into a sandy tomb," Casa says, tapping a foot with each syllable, or roughly every syllable anyway. "Tiny little fruit on a tiny little vine, squeeze out all the juice and make a tiny bit of wine." The little ones wiggle and whisper in anticipation. "Your friends and cousins, some other kiddies too. How many standing on the sand next to you?" She stops, her finger pointing at the little boy's foot. They all look at him. He thinks fast. 6. 1, 2, 3, Casa went on. 4, 5, and you are the one who sinks in the sand. At the last word, Casa's finger pointed to her own foot. Wayne whines, "You cheated, Casa." "You're the one who picked 6, she says. "Now keep it down so I don't get caught." She leads them a little way into the shrub trees until they get to a little opening, the perfect hiding spot. They've done this many times before, and they each sit in their usual spot. With hardly a sound, Casa climbs the tree growing along the back wall of the hall. She climbs to the old shuttered window and leans against the building. The shutter slats look in on dusty rafters, so it's hard to see a lot of what is happening in the hall. She can, however, hear what's being said very well. A woman named Dar Degba, who isn't on the village council, is trying to run the meeting as usual. "I have lived in Gilly Village all my life, and so have the rest of us," somebody calls out. "And I have raised 7 children here. This village has grave concerns ahead, without wondering who these strangers are that have wandered into our midst." She clearly has more to say, but Arbiter Stig Farrell silences her with 3 gavel pounds. Strangers? Nobody new ever comes to Gilly. The village is remote and surrounded by evil spirits.
"Thank you, Mrs. Degba," says Arbiter Farrell. "If the gallery will please remain silent until such time as the council requests your opinions, we may resume." Mrs. Degba sits down in a huff. Casa can't see Cray Degba, Dar's husband. No doubt his face is red and a tad sweaty. "Now," says Arbiter Farrell, I'd like to keep this meeting brief if we're able. It isn't often that we are visited by strangers. The Belask family have traveled from the town of Kavir Kura in the Lakelands to the west.
Someone asks a question, but Casa can't make it out.
I believe the father said they were heading for Owry and Morms in the eastern plains.
Another question Casa can't quite hear.
I was just getting to that, says Farrell. According to him, unrest is growing in Kavir Kura, and he'd wished to depart with his family before violence erupts. He and his wife say they are herbalists and apothecaries. They ask to lodge here a while before resuming their journey, as they have children, an infant, a toddler, and a teen. Have they money to pay for lodging? Asks Mrs. Degba. I'll answer this question, says the arbiter in a low voice. But if the gallery interrupts this meeting again, they will be excused. She gasps as if this is the first time he's scolded her in one of these meetings. They do not trade in the same currency as us, he says, and any currency from Kavir Kura may soon hold little value. They'll have to be offered, says Councilman Pluff. He's short, with a large potbelly, and he always sounds winded when he speaks. The babies and the parents won't be accepted, says Arbiter Farrell, but I agree the teen should be offered. Once for each family member, then, Pluff says, as if his word settles the issue.
Where will they stay? Asks Councilwoman Ramira Tods. We have no inn.
No, the arbiter says, but there are generous families here that would offer sanctuary to these poor souls.
Temporarily,
says Councilman Degba. Yes, of course, says Farrell. As I've said, the family wishes to be on their way as soon as able.
Will there be an incentive to those who open their home to this family? Asks Degba.
Arbiter Farrell chuckles for no reason. There are only a handful of people who have enough room in their homes to accommodate a family of 5. Dina Fulm has already agreed to host them. Dina stands up in the gallery. She's of a grandmotherly age, but Casa knows she's never had children.
I was honored to accept, says Dina.
Mrs. Fulm, says the arbiter, you've answered the call of your community yet again. We're in your debt.
Casa's hands are getting sweaty. She decides to go back down before she slips. Besides, she's had a successful spying mission. She knows there is a new family in town from Kavir Kura, and one of them is near her same age. The family will be staying at Dina Fulm's house, which isn't far from Casa's house at all. The little ones are waiting where she left them. What did they say? Asks Inair. Casa kneels and pulls them in close. Quietly, she says, there is a family from far away that just came to the village. 2 parents, 2 babies, and one who's close to my age. That's it? Asks Wayne. Why bother having a meeting at all? To figure out where the family will stay, for one thing. Casa almost tells them that the teenager will be offered. Instead, she leads them back out to the playfield. It'll be time to go soon, so if you want to play games, now is the time. They play until the elders finish their meeting, collect their kids, and take them home. The following morning, Casa decides she'll try and get a look at the new family in town. She dresses much earlier than usual, gives her father a peck on the cheek, and goes outside. A short stroll takes her to the home of Dina Falm, where the new family is apparently staying. At the edge of the yard is a covered travel wagon with high sides and large wheels. A team of mules stares at Casa from a newly installed pen at the back of Dina's yard. "Good morning, Casa," Dina calls from the porch. "Come have toast and jam with us." Casa crosses the yard to the porch. "Good morning to you, Dina." A tray of thick, homemade bread, sliced and toasted golden, sits on the small table beside Dina's chair. The old woman scoops jam from a bowl onto a slice and offers it to Casa. "You're too kind," Casa says as she takes the toast. "It's good you're here," says Dina. "I think the Bellusk's oldest might like to see the town. Would you like to give Tovy a tour?" "Of course." Casa takes a bite of toast. "I'll be right back." Dina rises and goes inside. Casa munches toast and jam until Dina comes back. "Casa, meet Tovy." Stepping through the door behind Dina is a person like none Casa has seen before. Tovy's white hair is short on the sides and back, long on top, spiking up and forward in a wild spray. Tovy wears baggy green pants, a long-sleeve powder blue shirt, and a fluffy crimson vest. Casa can't decide if Tovy is a boy or a girl. The pants and posture suggest Tovy's a boy. The painted lips, long lashes, and high cheekbones suggest Tovy's a girl. The piercing blue eyes suggest Tovy sees Casa assessing and is a little annoyed. "Hello, Tovy." Casa puts a hand out. Tovy takes it. "Hello, Casa," Tovy says in a voice that could belong to a boy or a girl. "Stay out of trouble, you two." Dina chuckles as she returns to her chair and helps herself to another piece of toast. Casa leads Tovy 20 or so steps to the avenue, and they turn left, away from Casa's house. "We don't really get visitors here," Casa says. "I hope you're ready to be a celebrity." Tovy nods and studies Casa from head to toe. Suddenly, Casa feels very drab in her tan and gray clothes. "Where would you like to go?" Casa asks. Tovy shrugs with a smirk. "I don't exactly know where there is to go. I guess the better question is, where would you like to take me?" "Sorry, I'm new at giving tours." Tovy smiles. "How about this? What's the most interesting thing in this village? Do you have a volcano or a haunted library, perhaps? Or a sideways cloud farm?" Says Casa. "What's a sideways cloud farm?" Tovy chuckles. "You tell me. It's your town." Casa smiles, not sure if Tovy is making fun of her. "Well, we don't have anything like that. But I can show you the offering bowl." Casa instantly wishes she hadn't said that. "All right." Tovy's head tilts to the side. "Let's see it." Casa looks around at the houses they're walking past. Here and there an elder watches from a window or a porch. Some nod, some wave, some pretend they aren't staring. Leaning closer to Tovy, Casa says, "I should tell you I'm probably not supposed to take you there." "Perfect," Tovy says. "I wouldn't want to go anywhere else." So what was it like? The city where you came from? Asks Casa.
Tovey is quiet for a bit. Casa is about to ask something else when Tovey says, "It's falling apart. There used to be gardens and fountains. Every house was a different color. And sometimes we spent the whole day walking around town visiting relatives and friends. At night, you could always hear music from the pavilion by the lake. Or you could go to one of the theaters and see a play." "What happened there?" Casa takes a left at the corner, and Tovey follows. Tovey kicks a stone into the ditch. "I guess people always find something to be angry about. Nobody wants to be the only one on their side, so they get a bunch of other people to be angry about the same thing. Next thing you know, there's no more music. One theater burns down, so the others lock their doors." "I'm sorry," says Casa. "I should mind my own business." "It's okay," Tovey replies softly. "Can I ask what it was like traveling here?" Casa bites her lip, hoping she hasn't just asked another troubling question. "It was very, very boring," Tovey says. "We rode on the wagon all day. Sometimes we stopped to water the mules and stretch our legs. At night, my parents would build a fire and cook a stew. I helped take care of the little ones so my parents could take turns driving the wagon and resting." "What was it like outside of Gilly Village?" "I don't know," says Tovey. "Normal, I guess." Casa shakes her head. No, in the forests. The valley. Were you... bothered?" "I'm not sure what you mean," Tovey says. "But no, it was very boring." They walk in silence as Casa pictures the family plodding through the forest, completely oblivious to the vicious spirits at their heels. Was it possible they made it all the way to Gilly with nothing but luck? She has a lot of questions about that, but Tovey doesn't seem to have any answers. The avenue turns, and they pass the last of the houses, as well as the last of the lush, grassy yards. In this part of the village, lots sit empty and grown over with straggly weeds and stunted trees. Soon they arrive at a long building, a gathering hall with high windows. "This is the prayer hall," says Casa. "Parents go there to pray that their children will not be taken in the offering." Tovey squints at the building. "Offering?" A little way farther, and on the other side of the avenue, they arrive at the pavilion overlooking the offering bowl. Tovey's eyes go wide. This is the offering bowl. Casa watches Tovey's amazed expression. The offering bowl and the sand taker have been there all of Casa's life. She's never seen it through the eyes of an outsider. Tovey goes to the edge and looks down over the smooth glass that curves down to the sandy bottom. A glass crater? Wonder fills Tovey's voice. Casa holds out a hand, ready to grab should Tovey get off balance. "Long before I was born, even before my parents were, a mighty stone fell from the sky. It landed so hot and hard that it made the flat, sandy ground into a deep glass bowl." "That's amazing." Tovey's voice is barely more than a whisper. "When the bowl cooled, the glass at the bottom began to break apart. Little by little, the bottom turned back to sand, and people swore they could see something moving beneath that sand."
Tovi takes a step back from the edge and focuses intently on Casa. Trying not to lose herself in Tovi's bright blue eyes, Casa looks down at the sand. The sand taker speaks to us in our minds. Well, it speaks to the village council anyway. Back then, it told them it would protect the village from wild animals and evil spirits if they made an offering. First, they offered a pig. Tovi inches a little further away from the bowl's edge. Then they offered a calf. Then a bull. Casa clears her throat. The sand taker wanted something else. They didn't, did they? Tovi's expression sours. Yes, Casa says. For the good of the village, they offered a child. That's awful, Tovi says. But the first child wasn't taken, says Casa. The act of offering made the sand taker happy, so they lowered a rope and pulled the kid up. Oh, Tovi grins. For a second, I thought they were feeding kids to the thing in the sand. Casa's face goes grim. Kids have been taken, as a matter of fact. In the old days, there was one offering a year, but now it's more. Tovi's grin flattens. How much more? Casa shrugs. The sand taker speaks to the members of the village council, particularly the chief arbiter. When it needs an offering, it tells them. How does it do that? Tovi asks. I don't know. But when it does, they bleed from their ears and nose, sometimes even their eyes. Have you seen that happen? Casa nods. When the sand taker calls for an offering, the offering is made. You're making all of this up to scare me. What? Says Casa. Why would I do that? I don't know, Tovi says. Making sport of the outsider? Casa looks out over the offering bowl. In a low voice, she says, I wish I was. Tovi still looks suspicious. So, who gets offered? Anyone from 5 years old to 18 years old, says Casa. Tovi walks away from the rim of the offering bowl, and Casa follows. How many kids does it take in each offering? Tovi's voice is quiet. Casa feels a lump rise in her throat. She swallows it back. Sometimes none. Sometimes 1. Sometimes 5. Tovi stares at Casa for a long moment, then turns to the offering bowl. Tovi's eyes grow wide. Why? Why would they? The sand taker protects us from wild beasts, Casa says, from the evil spirits that surround our village. Another long, awkward moment passes. I have to go. Tovi walks fast, back in the direction from which they'd come. Wait! Casa jogs to catch up. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to scare you or... No, says Tovi. You don't scare me. This village does. And my family has to leave. Little is said as they make their way back to Dina Falm's house. Casa goes home, lies in her bed, and tries to see Gilly Village through Tovi's eyes. It's just afternoon when Casa answers a knock at the door. She realizes her hair is a mess from lying in bed so long, and she realizes she probably has lines on her face from the creases of her pillowcase. She doesn't care much, though. Her mind is on Tovi. When she opens the door to find Tovi standing on her porch, Casa is taken completely off her guard. "Ah," she says, "I'm very sorry, but I was not expecting you, or anyone. I wasn't even—" Casa stops herself before her mouth goes into a complete babble. She clears her throat. "What brings you here?" Tovey gives a warm smile. "I feel bad about this morning, and I want to apologize. Sorry for being rude earlier." Casa's face has become quite hot. She's sure it has gone apple red. "You have nothing to apologize for, Tovey. Really." "How did you know which house was mine?" "I asked Dina," says Tovey. "She didn't want to tell me, though. You know, she seems like such a sweet old lady, but I don't know. I don't think she wants us in her house anymore." "Really?" Casa looks over Tovey's shoulder to see if any passers-by are watching them. "Come in for a minute while I get dressed." The two go inside, and Tovey follows Casa into her room. When they get there, Casa's face flushes again as she sees the mess of her bedroom the way Tovey must see it. "You seem dressed to me," says Tovey. Casa looks down at the gray leggings and baggy pale yellow shirt she's wearing. The leggings will be fine, but she can't wear a shirt like this out of her house. She finds a black tank top and pulls it over her head. She pulls her arms in and puts on the black shirt without taking off the tan one. Once the tank top is on, she pulls off the yellow shirt, flings it in the corner, and goes to the mirror on her closet door to fix her hair. Then she pulls on a pair of tall red socks and a red jacket that matches. She shoves her feet into a pair of black shoes, and she's ready to go. "Who's Kieran?" asks Tovey. The question catches Casa by surprise. She turns to see Tovey looking at Casa's little memorial shelf. "Kieran was my big brother." "Oh." Tovey backs away from the shelf. "I'm sorry. Can I ask what happened?" "The sandtaker took him." Casa spits the words out in a rapid automatic burst. She knows she has to say them quick because she was there in the offering bowl when Kieran was chosen. If she doesn't say the words right away, memories will paralyze her tongue. "Let's go outside." Casa leads Tovey through the house and out the front door. "Where are we going?" "All the kids will be down at the big playfield," says Casa. "Great." Tovey reaches into a satchel that Casa hadn't noticed immediately. From the satchel, Tovey pulls 2 little plant stalks about 3 inches long and as thick as the lead of a pencil. The stalks are pale green with little red bulbs on the end. "Here." Casa takes one as they stroll down the avenue. "What is it?" "It's called painter's quill," says Tovey. "It's a kind of moss. Put it in your mouth and chew it. It's kind of bitter at first. Keep chewing until it turns sweet. And then you swallow it." Tovey starts chewing. Casa takes hers and smells it, but it doesn't smell like anything. She puts it in her mouth and starts chewing. It's bitter as she starts chewing, but soon enough, the taste becomes as sweet as any candy she's ever had. But there's something else, too. She looks at Tovey and giggles. Tovey giggles back, and Casa can't stop her laughter. "How do you feel?" Tovey asks. Casa spins in a circle. "I feel light, and—" Casa lets out another burst of laughter. "Why am I laughing?" "It makes you laugh," Tovey says, grinning. "What about colors? How do colors look?" Casa looks at Tovey's vest, then down at her own red socks, then up at the blue sky, then at the green of the grass. The colors are so vivid. It's like they're alive. Tovey stops at a nearby flower and sniffs. "Oh, Casa, Smell this. Casa does, and it's like she's smelling a flower for the first time in her life. It's all like...
A dream? Tovey asks.
Yes! It's very dreamlike, chuckles Tovey. In Kavir-Kura, a lot of artists chew painter's quill when they work. It makes everything more vibrant and joyful and silly. Casa smells the flower again and again. It's like she's never smelled a flower before.
Children love it too, says Tovey. Is it safe?
Absolutely. My parents are apothecaries, and they've studied it very closely. If you ask them, they'll tell you all about the chemistry, but the scientific explanations are long and dull. You'd need, at least 10 painter quills to survive the lecture. Casa snorts laughter, then claps a hand over her mouth to keep from snorting again. How many more do you have? More than enough. Tovey shakes the satchel. Plenty more besides what I have on me. I wonder if it would grow here. You should plant some and see how they do. Casa imagines a garden carpeted with painter's quill, each red-tipped stalk stretching toward the sun. I would like that. Giggling to each other, they hurry along to the playfield, where most of the village children have congregated. Tovey shares the painter's quill with all of them, and the field is a happy whirlwind of joy and laughter. Tovey teaches Casa how they braid hair back in Kavir-Kura, and the two of them go on braiding any little one who asks. The sun is warm. The clouds look like happy faces, and none of them have ever seen colors so bright, so wild. The afternoon seems endless, but eventually the sun sinks low. Most of the children are happy to go home when it's time, no doubt hungry from an afternoon of constant games. Casa and Tovey are the last ones to walk off the field, and neither is in a hurry. Thank you, Casa says. I can't remember a day better than this one. I'm glad, Tovey smiles. They're all going to sleep well tonight. Casa takes Tovey by the hand. She still isn't sure if Tovey is a boy or a girl, but she finds she doesn't care. Tovey is exotic and beautiful and mysterious, exactly the sort of person she'd want to hold hands with. She gives a little squeeze. Tovey gives a little squeeze back. It's magic, you know. What is? Painter's quill, says Tovey. It's blessed by the shepherdess herself. Shepherdess? Casa's quill has worn off, but she's still fascinated with Tovey. She wears a coat of leaves and stands in the great fields. Tovey smiles wide, probably because of the wondrous expression on Casa's face. There's another herb called the eyes of the shepherdess, but it's much more powerful than the quills. They say it takes your mind to another place, and if you're deserving, you can meet her. Casa has a mind to take Tovey back to the playfield. What if they sat hidden in some trees, talking until the sun came up? Would it be such an awful thing? Instead, she leads Tovey back to Dina Falm's house and says goodnight. Casa thinks about Tovey the rest of the evening. Her last thought before she falls asleep is, I wonder if Tovey is thinking about me. At around midnight, Casa is awakened by a commotion in the avenue. She can't be sure, but it almost sounds like someone is calling her name. She opens the window, but by then whoever it is has moved along. She walks softly through her house, eases the door open, and steps out into the cool night air. She can still hear the crowd, and she knows where they're going. Casa steps back inside and almost goes back to bed when curiosity gets the better of her. She grabs a jacket and her shoes, then she's back outside on the avenue. She isn't the only kid who's been woken up either. Several other children have crept outside or are leaning out bedroom windows. Like Casa, they all know the elders are taking someone down to the offering bowl. A child here, a couple more there, 5 more waiting at the corner gaslight. The group of children grows a little bigger each block. "It's Tovi," a little boy says to Casa. "They had his wrists tied, and they were carrying him." "Tovi's a girl," says a little girl, "and the elders were being very mean." "Casa," the boy whines. "Tovi's a boy, right?" "No, a girl," whines the girl. "Enough of that," Casa snaps. "They're putting Tovi in the offering bowl." "We won't let them," the boy says in his most determined voice. Onward they hurry, and the crowd of children continues to grow until they reach the last of the houses. When Casa breaks into a run, the rest of the children do the same. The crowd of children sweeps down to where the elders have gathered at the rim of the bowl. "Where's Tovi?" Casa demands, as the elders take notice of the child mob. Some of the elders look down to the sand at the bottom of the bowl. They've already offered Tovi to the sand taker.
"You kids get back to your homes," shouts Arbiter Farrell.
"I'll save you, Tovi," shouts the little girl. "No, I will," shouts the little boy. They race to the edge of the bowl, and neither hesitates to slide down the curved glass sidewall of the crater. More children follow them, including Casa. A moment later, she and the rest of the child mob are down on the sand. Arbiter Farrell, knowing his voice is far louder down at the bottom of the crater, clears his throat and speaks much louder than is necessary. "I hope you all live to regret this night. Only one of you needed to go down to the sand taker tonight. The stranger, Tovi." Casa makes her way to Tovi as quickly as she's able. "What are you doing?" Tovi breaks free of the children and wraps shaking arms around Casa. "It's not right," Casa says to Tovi. Then she turns to the elders above. "It's not right!"
"Casa, what have you done, baby girl?" she hears her father say. "You've all offered yourself to the sand taker willingly," the arbiter's voice booms. "Those who are taken give their lives for the blessings of the village. Those who remain will give thanks." The sand churns beneath their feet, and the children go quiet. They've all done this enough to know you stay quiet as long as you can. Some of the children are pulled down a little way and released. One horrified little boy is pulled down, screaming until just his head and shoulders are above the sand. He sobs and begs, but then the sand taker lets him go. Soon the sand stops churning beneath them. The sand taker has gone, and the children huddle together. By then, most of the village has come to investigate the commotion. The elders lower climbing ropes down the glass walls of the offering bowl, and the kids begin climbing their way out. They're all dragged to the nearby pavilion, where Arbiter Farrell and a number of other elders are seething.
Angry parents hold their children by their shirt collars.
"You thoughtless whelps," Farrell snarls. "Do you know what it means to disobey the Sand Taker?"
No child speaks.
"It means our crops don't grow." Arbiter Farrell roars. "It means we won't be protected from evil spirits. It means our children will be born with deformities. How dare you put this village at risk?"
"We love Tovi," a little girl says, but nobody's sure whose voice it was. Arbiter Farrell grunts and clutches his chest. He wipes his eye and smears blood across his cheek. Another blood tear falls from the other eye. Blood runs from his nose and his ears. Farrell's eyes roll back, and he growls in a voice not his own.
"Huthagagras, Tulbara Skoon."
He almost falls, but two elders catch him. The Arbiter's body convulses as others join to help hold him up. He bucks and coughs and gags. Everyone watches in silence as the fit slowly subsides. His eyes open. He's exhausted. His voice is his own again, but now raspy. "The children were tainted. A drug. The taker is displeased." Hands shaking, he draws a handkerchief from his jacket pocket and dabs blood from his face.
"These idiot children have no idea what they've done."
Councilman Degba's hands are fists as he stomps back and forth in front of the crowd.
"This behavior must be punished swiftly and decisively so that it never happens again."
He stops in front of Tovi. "Where is my father?" Tovi's words are firm and defiant.
"Swiftly and decisively."
Degba slaps Tovi hard. Casa breaks free from her father's grasp and gets between Tovi and Degba. "What are you doing?"
"I'm protecting this village."
"No, you're not," Casa shouts. "You're hitting a child." Degba raises a hand to slap Casa, but Casa's father steps in. "We should all go home." Coughing, Arbiter Farrell has his legs under him again. "Yes, home. The elders will gather tomorrow to decide what must be done." The Arbiter's furious eyes flick back and forth between Casa and Tovi. Parents take their children by their arms as the villagers disperse. The silent crowd moves through the village, dwindling bit by bit as families return to their homes. When Casa and her father get home, she promptly shuts herself in her room and plops down on the bed. Her father barges in anyway and lights her lamp. "You can't see that Tovi girl again," he says. "Or is Tovi a boy?" Casa rolls away from him. "I will see Tovi if I want to." "No." He grabs her shoulders and pulls her back to face him. "You kids did an awful thing tonight. Do you understand? I'll do whatever I must to keep you safe, but you have to do your part, Casa. You can't put yourself at risk. I don't want my baby girl getting taken down into the sand." She blinks at him. "Someone else's baby girl, then?" Casa looks her father in the eye. "How many times did you go into the offering bowl?" "You have to remember the Sand Taker wasn't as strong then. It took fewer offerings, but the village wasn't as safe." "How many times?" she demands. He pauses. "Twice." Her jaw drops. "Twice? Twice?" In those 2 times, did you see one of your friends get dragged under the sand? Dragged under while they were screaming for their life and begging not to die. His silence is answer enough. Do you know how many times I've been in that offering bowl? In my life.
Yes. He puts his hand on her arm, and I died a little every time.
Casa yanks her arm away. How many times, then?
He lowers his head. You've been down there 21 times.
A manic laugh escapes Casa's throat. I've been down there 34 times.
No, that can't be.
I can tell you every one, she snaps. I can tell you what the sky looked like, who I stood with, who was taken. 34 times I waited to die while you did nothing.
I prayed, he says, getting to his feet.
Oh? But your prayers weren't enough to save Kieran. Casa stands too. Those prayers did nothing for him. And every other parent whose child went down in the sand, they prayed too. And those prayers did nothing. So I say, you did nothing.
Casa!
He raises a hand to slap her, but he stops.
When you're older, you'll...
When I'm older, she yells. When I'm older, I'll be in the sand with my brother and every other kid in this stinking town. And what will you do?
I'm warning you, he says.
You'll be busy making babies so the sand taker doesn't miss a meal. She steps closer, chin raised. And when that last scared child sinks, weeping and wailing into the sand, when the screams are gone, you elders will finally feel safe from the monsters that live in your mind. He snarls and slaps her so hard she falls to the floor. A long, silent moment passes before he says, I'm so sorry. He tries to help her up, but she shoves his hand away. Mother knew.
Don't you dare, he says.
She knew. She knew you let my brother die in the offering bowl for nothing. He's breathing heavy. His hands curl into shaking fists.
Don't you dare talk about my wife.
She knew. And she hung on a rope so she could be with her firstborn child. Casa looks down at his fist, then back up to his eyes. She trusted you to protect me, and you didn't even try. Red-faced and wild-eyed, he draws back to punch her. Go ahead. Casa nods to the portrait of her brother. Show Kieran, show my mother, how you keep me safe. His shaking face is deep red. You, get away from me, you coward, Casa says as she turns her back. He slams her door as he leaves. The next day, most of the elders gather at the village hall. The handful of adults who aren't in the hall are some ways away at the big playfield, supervising the children. Tovi is nowhere to be seen, so Casa sneaks away as soon as no one is looking. She dashes between the houses, doing her best to stay hidden in case some elder is out walking the avenues. When Casa gets to Dina Falm's house, she pauses to catch her breath between some bushes. She sneaks up to a bedroom window and peers in. The room is empty. She checks another bedroom, and that one is empty too. Casa looks at the upstairs window to see Tovi staring back. Casa motions for Tovi to come down. Tovi disappears and returns with a pad of paper. On it are the words, I can't, locked in. Casa gestures for Tovi to open the window. Tovi holds up the paper again and points to I can't and then to locked. Casa gestures that she will go inside the house. Tovi shrugs, apparently not understanding, then writes, "I am alone." Quiet and cautious, Casa creeps to the front of the house. She looks around to make sure no one is watching before she tries the front door. It's locked. She feels along the trim above the door in case the key is up there. She checks under the mat. She checks under flower pots and on the backs of porch chairs, but she doesn't find a key. Frustrated, she circles the house trying to push windows open. Casa's starting to think she'll have to break a window, but the noise would certainly draw attention. There's one window left on the ground floor, at the back corner of the house. Hands flat on the glass, she pushes up. Surprise and relief wash over her as the window hitches upward an inch. She gets her fingers under it and lifts it open. Casa takes a look around to make sure no one saw, hauls herself into Dina's house, and closes the window behind her. Clothes are spread out on the bed, and some travel cases lay empty in the corner. Judging from the unusual fabrics and patterns, Casa doesn't think these clothes belong to Dina. Casa hustles up the stairs to the bedroom where Tovi is locked. 3 shiny latches hold the door shut. Casa unhooks them and opens the door. Tovi hugs Casa's neck in a flash. "They took my mother and the babies, too." Tovi's voice wavers. "Do you know where they took them?" "I have a guess," says Casa. "Most of the elders are at the village hall. I'd bet that's where they are." Tovi slings the satchel over a shoulder. "How can you live in this place?" "I can't," Casa says. Then Tovi's eyes gleam as they catch the light. Casa draws a deep breath and lets it out slowly. "Come on, you should put on some of Dina's clothes so you don't stand out." They hurry down to Dina's bedroom. Casa pushes the door open and both are halted by the sight of Dina's dolls. Each handmade doll faces the door with wide eyes that look insane in the dim room. Casa waits a moment for one of them to move, but they only watch. She lets out a nervous chuckle and goes to plunder Dina's wardrobe. Casa tosses Tovi a shirt, jacket, and hat. Tovi puts them on. "You won't fool anyone up close, but you won't stand out so much from a distance." "Sure, fine," Tovi says. Casa grabs Tovi's hand. "If anybody sees us—" "The offering bowl." Tovi gives a grave nod. Casa squeezes Tovi's hand and they quickly leave the house. Creeping between the houses and ducking through the bushes, Casa leads the way to the village hall. Up in the tree behind the hall, Casa and Tovi cling to each other as they spy on the elders. A toddler cries and is quieted by his mother. Tovi squeezes Casa's hand tight at the sound. "My little brother," Tovi whispers. "My family is down there." Casa puts her lips over Tovi's ear and breathes a word. "Hush." Tovi nods, and they listen. "You have no grounds to keep us prisoner here," says a man who can only be Tovi's father. "We have done nothing wrong, and I demand you release us." Many of the elders shout their disagreement at the same time, until Arbiter Farrell has to pound his gavel. When they're silent, he says, "Nothing wrong. Your eldest, Tovi, drugged most of the children in Gilly, gave them all some sort of hallucinatory moss." "That is a harmless plant," says a woman who is obviously Tovi's mother. "Children in Kavirkura are given painter's quill often, by their family and their teachers. The plant is demonstrably safe." "If it's so safe, how come the sand taker wouldn't take an offering?" Dar Degba asks in her shrillest voice. "We don't presume to know the mind of your sand taker," says Tovi's father.
let us be on our way, and we can all forget each other." "Enough!" Arbiter Farrell pounds his gavel some more. "This is our village, and when you come here, you abide by our rules. When we give sanctuary, and we say the price of that sanctuary is an offering, then an offering is the price you will pay."
"We never agreed to that," says Tovy's mother.
"And your child drugs our children?" Farrell says, "to the point where our children offer themselves too. We could have lost a dozen of our children because your child gave them some hypnotic weed. Your child put dozens of our children at risk needlessly. And we're supposed to step aside so you can leave?" "Then what?" asks Tovy's father. "What do you intend to do with us?" "We certainly can't let you roam free," says Farrell. "Who knows what other mischief you'd get up to? But we can't even decide that now. Would you like to know why?" No one answers the arbiter. "Because the sand taker is furious." Farrell's voice cracks just a little on the last word. "It speaks to me, and it says it doubts our devotion. Tomorrow we have to offer every child in the village because of your family. All of our children have to go in the offering bowl." Tovy starts climbing down from the tree, and Casa follows. "What do we do?" asks Tovy. Casa shakes her head. She's shocked and angry. "I don't know." "I can think of one thing," says Tovy. "I need to get something from our wagon." When Casa and Tovy arrive at the big playfield, they're greeted like celebrities by the kids playing there. They hug Tovy's waist and ask for painter's quill. "Not right now," Tovy says, smiling. The playfield is being supervised by 4 men and women who all take instant notice of Casa and Tovy. The elders march straight for the 2 troublemakers, and the younger kids scatter.
"What do you think you're doing here?"
A man asks Tovy. "I just came to thank you," Tovy says, spreading arms to give the man a hug. Surprised, he lets Tovy give him a hug.
"Thank us? For what?"
"For everything." Tovy moves on to the woman next to him, then the other woman, then the other man. "My family is truly grateful for the hospitality your village has shown us. We want to make sure everyone knows that."
"But aren't you supposed to be back at Dina's house?"
"Oh, I was," Tovy says. The arbiter guy said I could come to the playfields for a little bit, now that they've come to an agreement."
"Ah,"
the man says. He and the other adults exchange looks for a moment before going back to whatever they'd been doing. "What was that all about?" asks Casa. Tovy holds out an open hand with a little orange berry. "I broke one of these open and rubbed it on the backs of their necks." "Oh," says Casa. "What will that do?" "It'll absorb through the skin and put them to sleep for a while," says Tovy. "But didn't you get it on your skin too?" "Yes, but I had a painter's quill too. The quill counteracts the berry." Casa takes the berry from Tovy and studies it. "How many of these do you have?" Tovy grins. "Enough." Within 15 minutes, the elders supervising the playfield find a shady spot to lie down and fall asleep. Casa gathers all the children around to explain what's going on. She's certain most of them are only there to see if Tovy has more painter's quill. "They mean to put us all in the offering bowl tomorrow," Casa tells the kids. Predictably, they groan and whine.
But listen, we have a plan. Is everyone here good at hugging your parents? They all shout yes, with some of the little boys trying to shout the loudest. Is anyone good at hugging your neighbors? Again, they shout yes. Does anyone want some more of Tovy's painter quills? At this, the children erupt. Okay, Casa says. Listen carefully. Later that night, a mob of children sweeps from house to house, dragging unconscious elders from their beds. On the backs of mules and in little wagons, the elders are taken to the offering bowl and laid at the rim. The child mob marches back and forth from homes to the bowl, on and on until every adult has been taken.
What do we do now, Casa?
Asks a little girl. We give the sand taker its final offering. Casa kneels over her father, kisses his cheek, and pushes him over the edge. He slides down the curved wall of the offering bowl, picking up a bit of speed, and tumbling like a feed sack when he hits the sand. Another grown-up is pushed over the side, then another, then some more. The children laugh at each one as they slide down, then flop at the sandy bottom. Hints of dawn glow on the horizon. As the sun slides up over the horizon, the elders wake up down on the sand. Confused, they gather into the same cliques as always and check each other for injuries. Some of the younger men try going barefoot to climb the glass. They don't climb far. Attention, elders! Casa shouts. She knows her voice is 10 times louder to those at the bottom of the offering bowl. It has to do with the shape of the bowl and the glass slope. Listen to me! Quiet, quiet! Arbiter Farrell holds up his hands, and the other adults obey. What is the meaning of this? His voice is firm, but by the time it arrives at the top of the bowl, it is weak and distant. Around Casa, children are running to and fro, chewing painter's quill. They're laughing and singing and playing, but not her. Casa stuffs her shaking hands in her pockets. She's nervous and angry, and a dozen other emotions all at once. She's never been in a confrontation like this before, never stood up to an adult. She's not even sure what she'll say, but Stig can't be the one driving the conversation. It has to be her. Farrell deserves no more regard than anyone else down there. Attention, elders, she repeats, addressing all of them. We children will no longer be your offering to the sand taker. The elders burst into an uproar until Arbiter Farrell quiets them again. The sand taker protects us. The Arbiter pounds a fist as he speaks. His voice is small. Protects us? Casa snaps back. How many children would you feed it to buy your imaginary protection? Farrell shakes a finger up at her. You're too young to... Too young? Casa shouts, and many of the elders cover their ears. We're old enough to die, but we're too young to fight for our lives? Casa, you lower the ropes. Her father steps forward. Do it now, and we'll figure out how to make this right. And everything could go back to the way it was? She asks. Yes, her father replies, and the rest of the elders shout their agreement. The children stare at Casa, eyes wide with uncertainty. She turns back to the elders below. We will never go back to the way it was. Listen here, Farrell wails. The blood running from his eyes and nose looks black in this light. You've made the taker angry. The taker will show no mercy this time. His voice is soon drowned out as the children shout at him that they'll never go back to the sand. Casa walks to the calling drum. Next to it, A boy holds the drumstick, which is almost as tall as he is. The tiny-voiced elders continue their protests below as Casa takes the stick. She pounds the drum. At the top of the offering bowl, the beat of the drum is like a loud thud. But it's very different for the elders below. Down on the sand, as all the children know from experience, the sound is a sharp, near-deafening boom. Casa hands the drumstick back to the boy. He looks at the drum. Then he pounds it. He hands the stick to the girl beside him, and she pounds the drum too. One by one, all the children step up to the drum, take the stick, and pound. Some pound it once. Some pound it several times. Some pound hard, and others soft. All the while, the elders crouch in horror with their hands over their ears. When they're all done, only Tovey is left. Casa holds out the drumstick. "I don't want to," says Tovey. Casa gives a weary smile. "Then you don't have to." She tosses the drumstick over the edge. It bounces down the smooth glass side of the bowl and lands in the sand, stripped of any power it once had. The elders are raving, frothing, and furious. Some try uselessly to climb the smooth glass crater walls. Most alternately plead and scold the children above. The sand beneath Stig Farrell's feet dips down, and he sinks in up to his knees. "No!" He snaps as if a commanding voice would be enough to save him. "Let me go, you rotten worm!" The rage in his eyes gives way to disbelief as the sand-taker doesn't let go. Instead, it pulls him down and down. He claws at the sand with panic splashed across his face. While his body sinks deeper, he spits mouthfuls of sand with each plea and grunt until he's in up to his weeping eyes. His arms are over his head, useless. His head and upper arms sink under, and his hands grab at the air until they sink too. Cray and Dardegba cower together away from where Stig Farrell had been. Dar shrieks as her husband starts to sink. "It's all right," he tells her. "Better me than you. I love you." She nods, tears streaming down her face, and holds his hands tight. Then she screams as she too begins to sink. Cray punches at the sand and tries to push her out of the sand-taker's grasp. But soon he's under. Only his hands are above, and he's still fighting for her. Soon she's in up to her mouth, and in a terrified gasp, she sucks in a throatful of sand. She gags and coughs as she sinks, but only succeeds in sucking more sand into her throat. And then she's gone too. "Casa! Angel!" Her father is on his knees, hands to the sky. "We had no choice." No choice? Casa remembers her brother, taken down into the sand those years ago. You had no choice? Fine. Now we have no choice. Now we have to fight for our own lives because you would not. "Drop the rope," he screams. "You're my little girl." As he sinks into the sand, a tear rolls down her cheek. "You could have done something," Casa whispers. The elders wail and claw at the glassy sides of the offering bowl as the sand-taker accepts another offering. Some of the children sing the inny-minnies, but they don't bother watching what's happening below. Not while the colors are vivid, everything's funny, and there are games to play. "Inny, minny, dinker, dinny, bango, binny, boom. Sand-taker, take you down into a sandy tomb. Tiny little fruit on a tiny little vine. Squeeze out all the juice, make a tiny bit of wine." your friends and cousins, some other kitties too. How many standing on the sand next to you? A boy points to a little girl who says, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you are the one who sinks in the sand. Another elder is pulled under. None of this gives Casa joy. It simply must be done. The elders were the ones who fed the sand-taker all these years. They could have starved it, but instead they nurtured it. They made it stronger. They chose the illusion of safety over their own children. Now the elders know the thunder of the summoning drum. Now the elders know the terror of the sand. The Inny-Minnies begin again, and the sand-taker's final feast continues. "What happens now?" asks Tovy. Casa takes Tovy by the hand. "Whatever we choose." The end.